Hello, today I'm going to talk to you about my fourth and most recently published book, Dirty Thoughts and Awkward Boners, Sexy Short Stories from a Former Stripper. So this book was not necessarily one that I really intended to publish. I guess it would technically be my first fiction book. I have some short stories that are published in various anthologies, and actually have a fiction crime novel coming out, which I'm super excited to tell you about when I am able. But as far as like fiction goes, this is pretty close. And it came about because I had gotten a lot of requests. Well, maybe not a lot, but I've gotten a few requests because of my time as a stripper, to do an OnlyFans, or why didn't I have an OnlyFans, or things like that. And the short answer is that, I have always considered myself to be an exhibitionist, but I really liked kind of the microcosm of the club, the performance of the stage, the one-on-one interactions, that don't really happen online. And porn was not something I ever really wanted to do. And so I just didn't really want to put that kind of content out there. So what I did instead was I started a Patreon account. And Patreon does not allow porn. They allow topless and nude photos to an extent. So what I did was I set up a Patreon account, and I kept the price a little on the high side to actually keep my follower count down. Because this was material that was kind of exclusive to a smaller audience. And after about a year and a half of publishing weekly topless photos and a monthly short story that would be an erotic story that was very much tailored to my patrons specifically, about a year and a half, I, for some of the Patreon security or community guidelines, people had started to come back and flag certain posts as pornography. These were posts that had been addressed before. They were some of my earliest ones and had been approved and been okay. And then for some reason, I don't know if the terms of service changed or anything like that, but they decided they didn't like them. They wanted to take them down. And I was starting to work on other projects. And so I just decided, I certainly don't want to get in a fight. My intention was never to violate any rules. I have no problem following the rules that I agreed to and signed up for. It was just that kind of felt like they were changing. And I just didn't really want to deal with the headache. So I thought, well, I have these 19 stories and they're already written and they're kind of ready to go. So I decided to publish them in a book. Now, because they were tailored specifically to my patrons, which was never more than I think 30 or 35, they very much speak in that way. So they're almost kind of bloggy in that respect, with the exception of a 3-part erotic fiction horror story that I did for Halloween, along with a special photo shoot. So this book has 19 short erotic stories. They're all pretty much about myself or my experiences. I would say almost all of them, with the exception of certainly the erotic horror story, and a couple of others, have at least a kernel of truth in them. I'm not going to tell you what what those are. You're going to have to use your imagination. But they are mostly fictionalized. Don't use any names, any real names or anything like that, except for my own. There are a few pictures in here that I had posted on my Patreon page that are included in the book. Like I said, since I don't think YouTube is going to be real happy with me reading any of these stories, I'm just going to go ahead and read you the introduction real fast. So here's the introduction. I spent 20 years stripping on and off, and I loved it. Well, most of the time. What I loved most about it was performing. Commanding a stage feels like nothing else in the world. I came to crave it and then missed it when it was over. The personal relationships I developed with customers was another part of the job that I enjoyed. Sometimes conversations got heavy, and things were revealed to me by complete strangers that made it hard to be completely unattached. How do you not care for someone when they are pouring their heart out? When you can hear the relief in their voice as words they've never uttered out loud finally make their way out. I can't think of anything more human. Even the short-term or one-time customers were a lesson in humanity, or at least human sexuality. I learned so much about a person in the first few minutes of a dance, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and unfortunately, sometimes a little scary. But I enjoyed the experience of it. Each person was a tiny puzzle to figure out. I've written 3 books about my time as a stripper. In Dirty Money, I write about how the choice I made to become a stripper and how that affected my life and those in it. Think You Want to Be a Stripper is about the ins and outs of the industry. I wrote about how bad nights make me feel, the goings on in the dressing room, and basic stripper etiquette, like not putting your bare pussy on the pole. Hard to believe you would need to tell somebody that, but trust me, you do. And Expose Yourself is a book on atheism, humanism, and critical thinking using humor and stripper analogies and anecdotes. Stripping even gave me some material for fiction. Stripper Noir is a crime novel I wrote with crime and horror author Armin Rosamilia about a stripper serial killer. I have a few short horror stories included in some anthologies as well. But those books don't include much of the dirty thoughts that run through my head. Strip clubs are a hypersexual environment. To be able to function and enjoy that kind of work, it helps to be a very sexual person. I happen to be just that kind of person. But in all my writing, I didn't write much about that kind of stuff. More an allusion to my dirty side than the outright expression of it. These short erotic stories are a mixture of real-life events, personal fantasies, and a 3-part erotic horror fiction story. I hope you have as much fun reading them as I did writing them. So, like I said, this is kind of a collection of more intimate type thoughts that I wasn't actually totally sure that I wanted to have out there, but it's out there. So if you are interested, it is available for print and digital and actually Audible. And I will go ahead and put those links in the description. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and until next time.